everyone. Continuing this Fleetwood Mac weekend. Today, now, it's time for me to find out what it is Vlad has up his sleeve for my listen today. As he told me yesterday, kind of Fleetwood Mac, post-Fleetwood Mac, something Fleetwood Mac. So I haven't been allowed to look at anything. Let me just open up my screen here. And Rumours of Fleetwood Mac. Rumours of Fleetwood Mac. That's interesting. Is that a band title? Rumours of Fleetwood Mac is a tribute band. Okay, that makes sense. Performing in excess of 125 shows each year across the UK, Europe, North America, and beyond. 125 shows each year. Rumours of Fleetwood Mac has earned a reputation for its musical integrity, attention to detail, and heartfelt performances that honour the artistry of one of the most beloved groups in rock history. Okay, this is going to be interesting. So this is a tribute band, but not the actual Fleetwood Mac band. It is Rumours of Fleetwood Mac. And the song is Sara. Let's listen. 1979. They have it up on the screen.
Wait a minute, baby. Stay with me a while. Said you give me life, but you never told me about the fire.
So I find myself really kind of fascinated by the way they are presenting this. And I haven't listened to a ton of Fleetwood Mac. But I think I've listened to enough to be able to tell that this is not Fleetwood Mac's own sound. At the same time, I like what they're doing with it. And so part of my the thoughts in my mind right now are kind of understanding a bit more of what a tribute band, although this is just one, I have heard of the concept of tribute bands, and of course it's not possible to recreate a band's distinctive sound, because you have to have a certain voice. You have to have, the things that make the band in the first place. And once that's gone, it's gone. So what to do? And a tribute band is a nice idea, and I'm starting to kind of, by listening to this piece, I'm kind of getting a little bit more of a vision of what a tribute band can do, because somehow in my mind I imagined that maybe they were a tribute band was trying to recreate as close as possible to the original band's sound. But here it's obvious that it's different, and they're not trying to hide the difference. And so there's a distinctive flavor to this, which is different from Fleetwood Mac, and yet it's Fleetwood Mac's music. And I can hear, even though I haven't listened to a bunch of Fleetwood Mac, I've listened to some, and I can hear elements of Fleetwood Mac style. And of course I recognize that this song itself was a Fleetwood Mac song. So it's really an interesting experience to me. I felt myself getting pulled into it. Meaning, it feels like an authentic performance, not just a sort of, let's make it as picture perfect as possible and make all the Fleetwood Mac fans happy they can come listen to Fleetwood Mac music live even after Fleetwood Mac is over. So I'm happy to discover that there is an element of originality, of sincerity, of not mere imitation, but that it does have its own distinct voice and flavor as their own band. They're simply not playing music of their own composition. Which really is a lot like classical musicians, right? Orchestras, they're not playing their own compositions. They're playing the music that's been played by orchestras all around the world and composers over and over. But it's their unique artistry and voice that they bring to it. And that is what I'm picking up on in this, at least this first part of this song.
And it was just like the great dark wind within the wings of a storm.
I noticed that that the percussion seems to be a bit more prominent than what I associate with Fleetwood Mac. Is one of those differences in perhaps the classic versus the modern recreation. Just the development of equipment and technology.
Sara,
she has a nice rich voice.
You're the poet in my heart. Never change, never stop. But now it's gone. It doesn't matter how far. But when you build your house, that's home.
Okay, and I start noticing the lyrics, and they're really picturesque and imaginative. I might say a little bit more romantic than yesterday's song, although yesterday's song was a lot of fun for its own reasons. Very different from this. But this verse, I like what it's saying. You're the poet said Sara, you're the poet in my heart. Never change, never stop. But now it's gone. It doesn't matter what for. But when you build your house, then call me home. The idea, the image I get of someone viewing another person as the poet in their heart. What an image. And then adding to that, when you build your house, call me home. The image I get in my mind is this image of building a house for the poet, making a place for the poet to live, and the poetry and the poetic imagery, that the romantic imagery that grows out of this verse. I really love it. That I really appreciate. Because if I'm listening to the music, this music, I feel like, again, I don't know Fleetwood Mac well enough, but I feel like this song must have come from later in their output. It has more of a just the musical makeup of it. It's musically, if the lyrics weren't present, just try to take the voice out of the way, take the lyrics out of the way. No voice, no lyrics. What do we have? Not a lot. Is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. I'm not saying it as a negative. It's simply an observation, a way of looking at what we have in the music here, because that helps us to start to appreciate. And you noticed, maybe you noticed, I noticed as I was listening to this, and especially coming from yesterday's song, the Green Manalishi, I think is what it was, Manalishi, where the music was incredibly descriptive and colorful. This song doesn't have that kind of music. It's a different kind of music, and it feels like it might be music from later in their career, maybe a way in which they shifted their style towards perhaps a more pop sound or something like that. The music itself doesn't have a lot happening. We have the drums, we have some simple harmonic changes, even the melody of the vocal line is not really highly developed. So, does that give us a weak piece of music? Not necessarily. Coming from what I listened to yesterday, I was approaching this in the first bit as something that would have a more imaginative musical design. But I noticed along the way, as I began to orient myself to this particular piece of music and to settle into it, I found myself relating to it differently, especially focusing more on the lyrics. And that is the strength of this kind of music, where if you're paying attention, there's not much happening in the music to pull you away from the lyrics. It's in a way, it's kind of making the bed, preparing the ground for the lyrics themselves and placing the lyrics as the most important, not even the most important, but as the focal point. And that is what I find myself doing as this music is progressing. And I'm following the song through. I find myself paying less and less attention to things like chord changes and verse and chorus and that sort of thing. I start finding myself really homing in on the lyrics and focusing on what is being expressed lyrically. That is why when I got to that verse, said Sara, you're the poet in my heart, it caught my attention. It really grabbed me and said, oh, wait, this is really important. And this is where you should be focusing your attention. And I find myself continuing that way through the piece now, because that is where the music is taking us. It's kind of the modern iteration of the ancient bardic storytelling tradition, where it's about the poetry, it's about the story, it's about what's being expressed in the words, and not so much about the music, which is simply a bed of stuff on which supports and delivers the poetic expression for us. Which makes me pay more attention to the subtleties in her voice and how she's using that. Or sometimes the not so subtleties, the passion of her delivery. I start relating to the musical accompaniment as something that is more like an impressionist palette of color and texture. Not necessarily impressionist, but that shapes our experience. The chorus here, Sara. Grows into the Sara. Grows into it. And as sometimes happens with poetry, I misread and even misheard that verse that caught me. And I recognized it at the end here. Let's see. It's right here in front of me. I was reading it, said Sara, as if Sara said. But no, said, meaning I said. Sara, you're the poet in my heart. And that is where this last verse helped. Sara, you're the poet in my heart. Never change. And don't you ever stop. Now it's gone. No, it doesn't matter anymore. When you build your house, I'll come by. And so, again, my perception of this piece is shifting even as we come to the end, and my understanding of what's being expressed. It's like that sometimes, where it seems so simple after you put all the pieces together. But listening to music is a real discovery process. And one of the things that I've learned is that we always have to be open to allowing our perceptions to be adjusted, our interpretation to be changed, our way of relating to music to grow into something different. It's not often that I feel it happening so rapidly. It happens sometimes. But this is one of those experiences of, okay, I started with one approach and it didn't really fit. And then I found my way to the next. And even in that approach, I misunderstood some of the poetic lines, but still I felt the impact of what was being expressed and the emotion of it. And that, I think, is the most important part. We don't always intellectually understand everything. And going back through, as I'm reading back through these lyrics, I find myself thinking, these are lyrics I'd really love to live with for a little while. Wait a minute, baby. Stay with me a while. Said you'd give me light, but you never told me about the fire. There's another, that's just the opening, and I completely missed it at the beginning. But it's so beautiful the way it is setting up a scene, and at the same time already giving us other ideas to consider. You said you'd give me light, but you never told me about the fire. What a way of expressing the passion and the connection. Drowning in the sea of love, where everyone would love to drown. But now it's gone. It doesn't matter what for. When you build your house, then call me home. And so it is, a very romantic expression of love for someone whose love towards you is not what you hoped it would be. Perhaps it was passionate at one point, but seems to have faded. There's a heartbeat and it never really died. Oh, Sara, would you swallow all of your pride? Would you speak a little louder, singing all I ever wanted? And so I found myself completely taken by the lyrics. I'm still questioning the music. And I don't think it's the fact that this is a tribute band and not the actual Fleetwood Mac. It is the actual structure of the music itself. And it's one of those moments where it's worthwhile for us to pause and consider where the scales, what the balance of the scales are between lyrics and music. And this is one of those songs where lyrics carry the weight. They are the thing, really. Music, it could be this melody, it could be these chords, or it could be any other melody or any other chords. It's not something that's saying, I belong to these words. They are perfectly adequate to deliver these words. They support the delivery of the lyrics. But it doesn't do a whole lot more than that. And that is not the fault of any band. It is simply the design of the music itself. Is it a bad design? No, it's perfectly adequate musically. And I have to say that this performance was a lovely performance of it. The singing, the singer gave a very heartfelt, sincere delivery, and her voice was lovely, more than lovely. she shaded it with her tone and shaped it so that, in spite of the fact that the music isn't trying to be a really significant component of the final outcome, she used it to that end. And that's not always easy to do. The rest of the band supported her. Everything was well done. And with a piece of music like this, that is exactly what needs to happen. And it did exactly what it was supposed to do, because it made me focus on the poetry, on the poetic expression. And it's fascinating to me to see these two sides of Fleetwood Mac's output in one weekend, and to experience them in such close proximity. I'm sure I will be returning to Fleetwood Mac in the future as well, and maybe even to Rumours of Fleetwood Mac, because I feel like they are a very solid and artistic interpreter of the music. So this has been a very enjoyable weekend, and I'm looking forward to what comes next. I'll see you soon.